Welcome back, everyone. Today's Kickstarter Weekly is covering Kickstarters that are completing their funding from January 24th through the 30th. And I have two games that I'd like to talk to you about today. But before I do that, first I'd like to talk to you about the three different games that I played during this period. The first of those games is Anno 1800, and this is a recent release that people are generally pretty excited about. It's designed by Martin Wallace, who's a designer that I really love, and it's based on the computer simulation. Now, much of this game revolves around moving worker cubes onto industries in their corners and then building more industry tiles. And it's a very kind of interesting game because as soon as the player goes out of cards, that triggers the end of the game. However, most of the actions that they're going to be doing throughout the game cause them to pick up more and more cards. Now, this game can run very long. I think typically, no matter the player count, games run about 3 hours. I've played it at a 2-player count. I've played 3-player count now yesterday, and I've played a few of the solo games. Now, there is a solo campaign on Board Game Geek. You can go over there if you have the game and you want to check it out. The way that campaign is structured, it starts slowly. So the first couple games, you only have access to a portion of the industries, and as you play more and more games in the campaign, more and more of the game kind of opens up. There's sort of a narrative that involves you building up a community, so you're starting out small from scratch. I do plan on going back and playing through all of the solo games, but I have to say, after the 2 and the 3-player game, I've found that while I like the gameplay in a very general way, it is very repetitive and samey, and I think the length of the game really overstays its welcome. In fact, most of the people that I've played it with now have told me that they don't want to play it again. Even though they kind of enjoyed their play, they just echo what I'm saying, which is that it would be much better and kind of function better if it was an hour and a half game. It's just that the mechanics, everything in the game feels like it's just better suited for a brisker, shorter game. It would be very enjoyable at that length. But as a 3-hour game, it just overstays its welcome every play. I know that not everybody feels that way. I've seen other people online really praising it. But I think for me personally, I do feel that the game runs long and kind of overstays its welcome. And the fact is that everybody that I know that I've played with feels that way, yet even more strongly. So this is a game that I think it would be very hard for me to get to the table moving forward, just because most of the people that I know, while they enjoyed their time with the game, they don't really want to play it again. And so I think this one is headed for my sell pile pretty soon. Like I said, I do want to play through the solo campaign and experience that, but I think once I've completed that, and I plan on doing that over the next week or two, I think I'll be selling the game. So it's not a bad game. I think for me, I'm going to end up probably rating it around a 7.0 unless I find a lot of value in the solo game. And that rating could have been bumped a point or two higher if the game just flowed better and had a better game length. But the fact that it kind of overstays its welcome and runs maybe 3 times as long as it should kind of knocks it down to a 7.0 for me. I also played Imperial Steam. It was only my second time playing that game. I've played it at a 2-player count, now I've played it at a 3-player count. I performed absolutely miserably in our 3-player game. My friends that I was playing against just took a lot of actions early on that kind of boxed me out a lot. And so I had to sort of pursue some alternative strategies because I was so low on money and had no way of getting any money really. I had to kind of lean into the investors. And there were a couple times in the game where I spent several rounds building up to do one big thing that would really turn the game around for me. And then every time I went to do it, one of my 2 friends did something the move before that made it completely impossible to do what I've been trying to do. So I ended up finishing Imperial Steam with like 50 points, and both of my friends had, I think, between 600 and 700 points. So it was just brutal. I got shellacked, and I think probably anyone interested in that game should be aware of that. One of my friends also said that he had read previously that that is not atypical in 3-player games for one player to sort of run ahead and the other 2 players to be more or less painted into a corner. Now, one of my friends thought that he was painted into a corner along with me, but obviously, since it was kind of close between those 2 other friends, he was not really painted into a corner the way that I was. Nevertheless, it ended up being a very kind of imbalanced game. Now, I don't really mind that, at least as far as this one play goes, because I actually really enjoy the game a lot, and I enjoy its mechanisms, and I look forward to playing it again at 2-player, maybe at 4-player, just trying out all of the player counts. But I really do like the game, and I suppose that says something about it, that even though I just was absolutely destroyed, I still like the game and want to play it again. And there is a lot of variability in Imperial Steam. They give you different tiles for every player count, 2, 3, and 4. And they give you kind of a fixed setup if you're playing it for the first time. And if you're not, then whatever player count that you're playing at, there is a lot of variability in the game. There are like 5 or 6 different ways that tiles are kind of distributed randomly. Bonus scoring is random. So it feels like it will be a very fresh game at any player count because of that variability built into it. However, just know that it is possible to get just really painted into a corner, even when you know what you're doing in the game. And that's what happened to me. So if anyone out there has a problem when games turn sideways like that, this may not be the game for you. And also, I think that does happen more at the 3-player count. For now, though, I think I'm going to rate Imperial Steam probably about an 8.5, and we'll see where that rating goes when I do play it in the future, at the 2-player count, maybe with my fiancée Kristen, or at some point if I can get a 4-player game played. I anticipate that if I continue to like it more, that 8.5 may go up to like a 9, and if the problems in the 3-player game repeat themselves kind of as a constant, I may end up downgrading it to like an 8. And at that point, if that becomes a constant problem, I suppose I'd have to look at maybe selling the game from my collection, just because I don't want players that I play with every game to feel alienated. I don't mind if I get painted into a corner once in a while, but if it's a situation where it's going to happen to somebody every game, I'll have to see. I'll have to see what other players' reactions are to it. But I like train games in general, and Imperial Steam is a very fiddly train game with a lot of kind of rules exceptions, and despite all that, it's a really solid game mechanically, and I really, really enjoyed it. The last game that I played was Wildlands, and I've talked about this one before. It is a light miniature skirmish game by Martin Wallace, the same designer who did Anno 1800. And I'm generally a very big fan of his. I like Age of Steam, Railways of the World, Australia, the Brass games. Those are all his. Now, here's the problem with Wildlands. I've now played it with 4 different players, and nobody that I know likes the game, except for me. I do have an expansion called The Ancients that allows you to play solo or cooperatively. I think I'm probably going to explore that expansion with my fiancée Kristen. She absolutely loathes fighting games where you're just kind of one versus the other, just at each other. So the base game, kind of how the game plays generally, is definitely not for her. But she likes cooperative stuff. So I think we're going to play the 2-player cooperative mode together. I'll see how we like it then. But I think even though I enjoy this game, if nobody that I know likes it or wants to play it with me, it may be headed toward the sell pile eventually. That's something I kind of want to resist with that game because I do personally enjoy it. But it does have a lot in common with Unmatched, and I think Unmatched is a better game. That game has players playing individual characters, and every character's deck is very different and very specific to those characters, and it gives them a fighting style that is very different from all the other characters and very specific to them. It feels very unique, and it feels like you're fighting as the character. So if I have these 2 different games, they're kind of similar, and they kind of fulfill a similar need, I'm probably going to have to keep the one that other people actually want to play. I'm not done with Wildlands yet, though. We'll see how the cooperative mode goes, and I'll probably introduce it to a couple more people and see if I can find anyone who likes it. But for now, even though I don't love the idea, I think it has one foot in the sell pile as well. So Oof, kind of 0 for 2 with Martin Wallace games this week. Now let's talk about the 2 currently running Kickstarters this week that you might want to take a look at. The first is for Skytear Horde, which had a minimum required funding goal of about $17,000. They're currently sitting at $230,000, which is about 13.5 times that minimum required funding goal. Now, they're going to complete their funding on Thursday, January 27th, and this is a game for 1 to 3 players, which is a little bit odd. Games are supposed to run about 30 minutes. It has a complexity level of medium-heavy, and we're going to set the risk at this campaign at medium-high. Now let's talk for a minute about that odd player count. So it's a 1 to 3 player count. There's a solo mode, so obviously that would be at the 1 player count. There's also a cooperative mode, but the cooperative mode is only for 2 players. So the solo and the cooperative modes are for 1 to 2 players. The competitive mode is for 2 to 3 players, and it's billed as a 1 versus many, but that 1 versus many can only be played 1 versus 1 or 1 versus 2. So it's a kind of strange, very narrow player count where the solo mode is for 1, the cooperative mode is for 2, and the competitive mode is for either 2 or 3. And if you do it with 3 players, you're going to have 1 player playing against the other 2 players. Now, this game is being billed as a mostly cooperative card game based on tower defense video games. And the 2 card games that they reference this being a lot like are Hearthstone and Keyforge. So if you've played Hearthstone, the computer game, it's a card-based computer game, or if you've played Keyforge Live, the physical game, this game is going to be in the vein of both of those. Now there are 2 designers on this, Giacomo Neri and Riccardo Neri, and both of them have previously worked on Skytear. The artist, Riccardo Parmigiani, this is his first published game, and the publisher is Skytear Games, and they previously published Skytear. Now there are really 4 different pledge levels in this, and then some add-ons, so let's go over the 4 different pledge levels first. The cheapest of those is the $29 Skytear Horde retail box, and that's going to come with 3 Horde decks, 3 Alliance decks, 30 plus extra cards, 80 plus tokens, and stretch goals. Now, if you pledge at the $46 gameplay all-in level, you'll get all of those things plus 2 expansions. The expansions are called Nupter Illusionists and Utsesh Horde. If you pledge at the $68 level, that pledge level is called Skytear Horde Deluxe, and that's going to add in 3 Kickstarter exclusive items, a magnetic box, a playmat, and upgraded deluxe tokens. Finally, if you pledge at the $113 level, which is the Skytear Horde Collector pledge level, you'll be adding to that an art book, Kickstarter exclusive promo pack, and 400 custom sleeves. Now, if you wanted to pledge at a lower level and then add some of the things on as add-ons, here are the things that are available as add-ons. For $7, you can get the promo pack. For $17, you can get the deluxe tokens. The art book is $20, and the neoprene playmat is also $20. The 400 custom sleeves are available for $34. And then finally, you can add on something from the original Skytear campaign. That was a MOBA game, and it had miniatures in it. And one of the things that you could get in that campaign was a miniatures box. It was kind of an add-on. So they're offering that again here, and if you get that, you can use the miniatures in this game instead of the tokens. And that's available for $45. Incidentally, if you're curious about the MOBA game, it was published in 2020, and it has an 8.2 right now on Board Game Geek. Now, depending on your pledge level, the shipping cost for continental United States is going to run somewhere between $16 and $19, and Skytear Games is aiming at October 2022 to deliver this game. From there, we go to Viscounts, Gates of Gold, and Keeper of Keys. They also had a minimum required funding goal of $15,000, about $15,500 actually. They're currently sitting at $511,000, which is 33 times that minimum required funding goal, which is amazing. They're having another fantastic campaign. Viscounts is also going to conclude their campaign on Thursday, January 27th. Viscounts, the base game, plays 1 to 4 players in 60 to 90 minutes. This Kickstarter is for 2 expansions, and both of those expansions look to play at the same player counts the same amount of time. So they're not changing the player count, and they don't seem to be radically altering the play time for the game. Now, Viscounts of the West Kingdom is generally considered a heavy game, and we're going to set the risk at this campaign at low. And in this campaign, there are 2 different expansions. Both of those expansions will add in more townsfolk and hero cards and manuscript tiles, and so they're both giving you, more variability for the game. They're just giving you more components to sort of extend the life of your game if you've been playing it a lot and you want some more stuff. But they're also adding in some new mechanics as well. So Gates of Gold is going to add in King's Order and Outsider cards. Both of those are new to the game. They're also adding in building bonus cards, again new to the game, and something called manuscript boards, which is going to work off of the manuscript tiles in the game. So it's going to add another mechanic into the game that will work off of those manuscript tiles. Keeper of Keys is going to add in something called chest tiles. And they're also going to add in 3 new replacement townsfolk cards, which will have chest tiles on them, so they'll kind of work with the chest tiles, and they'll replace some of those other starting townsfolk cards so that you can get something into the game that has that iconography of the chest tiles and gives you some ways to kind of use them within the game. They're also adding in 3 public buildings that players can compete over, as well as thicker player boards that are going to work with these chest tiles. Now, both of these expansions are designed by the same 2 designers who worked on the base game. They are Shem Phillips and S.J. McDonald. Shem Phillips has previously designed Architects, Paladins, and Viscounts of the West Kingdom, as well as Raiders of the North Sea and Raiders of Scythia. And S.J. McDonald has previously worked on Architects, Paladins, and Viscounts of the West Kingdom and Circadian's First Light. And Mihailo Dmitrievsky is back as the artist. He's also known as the Miko, and he has previously worked on such games as Architects, Paladins, and Viscounts of the West Kingdom, Raiders of the North Sea, and Valeria Card Kingdoms. Finally, Garphill Games, the publisher, has previously published Architects, Paladins, and Viscounts of the West Kingdom, as well as Raiders of the North Sea and Raiders of Scythia. Now, there are also 4 pledge levels for this campaign, as well as some add-ons. One of the things to know about the add-ons here, though, is that there's not going to be a pledge manager. So if you want any of the add-ons, you need to add them onto your pledge during the campaign. If you haven't pledged anything on Kickstarter in the last year or so, this is a feature that has kind of been introduced, where a lot of the time now you don't need to wait for a pledge manager. You go to pledge, and then you'll have kind of a list of extras that you can add on. So that's what you'll need to do in this campaign, and you'll need to do it while the campaign is still live. You won't be able to add in more things after the campaign is over, and there won't be a pledge manager. There might be a survey where you kind of just confirm what you did, but there won't be a pledge manager where you can add in new things or kind of change your order. So for $26, you can pledge the Keeper pledge level, or you can pledge the Goldsmith pledge level. And each of those pledge levels will include 1 expansion. So Keeper is Keeper of Keys, Goldsmith is Gates of Gold. If you want both of the new expansions, then you should pledge at the $73 pledge level. That is called Baron. It will give you both expansions and a collector's box. Interestingly enough now, none of those pledge levels come with the base game, Viscounts of the West Kingdom. So if you're coming into this and you don't have Viscounts, you need to add that on. You will only be able to get the expansions through the pledge levels themselves, unless you pledge the final pledge level, but that's going to have the rest of the games in the series and everything related to those games. So you may not want those. If you do, however, it's $375. It's called King. It's going to come with the Viscounts base game, as well as both new expansions and the collector's box. You'll also get Architects of the West Kingdom and both of that game's expansions, Age of Artisans and Works of Wonder. That game also has a playmat available, so you'll get that as well. You'll get the collector's box, and you'll get the 2018 promo pack that originally was available when that game was first on Kickstarter. You'll also get the Paladins of the West Kingdom base game with the 2019 promo pack, and that game's expansion City of Crowns, as well as a collector's box for Paladins. In addition to all of that, you'll also get a pack of 50 metal coins and the West Kingdom Tome Saga. Now, if you played the Of the North Sea series, and if you played all three of those games with Rune Saga of the North Seas, which is what it was called in relation to those games, you would get runes when you did different things in the various games. So you'd be competing for those goals as well as the goals of the games themselves. And then at the end of all three games, whoever had the most runes would win. So the Tome Saga is very similar to that. It's going to have a similar system where when you play Architects, Paladins, and Viscounts, you can compete to win different kinds of tomes. They're called tomes in this version instead of runes. But that's only half of Tome Saga. So Tome Saga did something else as well. They gave you a cooperative mode that you can play with any of the three games. So you can do this kind of campaign type mode where you're competing for tomes, or you can use the Tome Saga to play any of the three games cooperatively and play with somebody to fight against this boss in any of those three settings. Now, if you don't want everything that's in that big pledge, but you want more than what they're offering in some of the other pledges, here are the things that you can add on, and here are the prices for those items. For $8, you can add on the Architects promos from 2018. Interestingly enough, though, they are not offering the Paladins promos from 2019 as an add-on. So the only way that you can get that is if you're doing the big pledge with everything in it. However, if you're not wanting to do that, what you might want to do is just look at Garbhell Games' website, because I think over time they'll have those 2019 Paladins promos available again, and that might be your best way to get it. You don't necessarily need to pledge hundreds of dollars for that promo pack. That would be insane, right? For $11, you can add on the 50 metal coins. You can add on any of the collector's boxes or the playmats for Architects at $22 each. Any of the expansions as an add-on will run $26, and any of the three base games will be $45 as an add-on. So if you are pledging this campaign, you're getting both of these expansions, but you don't have the Viscounts base game, you're going to want to add it on as a $45 add-on. Unless you don't have any of the games and you're doing that massive pledge that has everything. Now, continental US shipping for any of these pledge levels is the very cheap price of $9, and Garbhell Games is planning on delivering this campaign in October of 2022. That closes out the currently running Kickstarter section, but I would like to talk to you quickly about the games or game that I pledged last period. So the only game that I pledged from the last video was for Dome Pierre. Now, this feels a little bit risky to me because it's a new publisher and they don't have a track record. They don't have other published games. And also some of the art in Dome Pierre looks a lot like Viticulture, which it shares a theme with. So Viticulture is all about winemaking. Dome Pierre is about making champagne. But mechanically, there are differences in the game. It is not very similar once you get into the mechanics of the game. I'm really looking forward to eventually receiving Dome Pierre, playing it, see how it works, see how it compares with Viticulture and to a lesser degree Vinos. But I wanted to support this newer publisher and to see if they'd made a game that can stand up alongside those other two games. Finally, let's talk about the games that I've acquired since the last video. Only 2 new games have come in. Both of these are Kickstarters that were delivered. The first one is called Three Sisters. It is a farming-themed roll-and-write game from Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle. They did Fleet and Fleet the Dice Game. And Fleet the Dice Game is a very much-loved roll-and-write game. And so I knew that the theme for Three Sisters, being farming-related, would likely appeal to my fiancée, Kristen. She does have kind of a love for Farmville. And I knew Ben Pinchback and Matt Riddle had a solid reputation. So it felt like a really good game to take a little bit of a chance on because I think she may really like it. And Vivid Memories is also a game that I pledged largely with Kristen in mind. It's sort of an abstract game where you're placing out these, I want to say tiles, but they're these little plastic pieces. And they kind of fit into little groove areas in a board that simulates a human brain. And you can place them up to 3 of these little plastic pieces in each area. And there's a lot that has to do with how you place and scoring opportunities and things like that. But it looked like a very fun, medium light, puzzly abstract game. I think the kind of thing that has a fun theme to it, but it's very, very colorful with kind of its abstract angle on that theme. And it's a smaller game, so it's potentially possible to take traveling, which is always a good thing. And I'm always looking for lighter games that have good choices. And sometimes those choices are really present in very puzzly type games. So I'm actually looking forward to playing both of those quite a bit. And I'm hoping to get those to the table with Kristen, but we'll probably wait on that until after we finish our Role Player Adventures campaign, which is still ongoing. I think we have 5 games left in that. So I'm looking to probably complete that campaign over the next week, week and a half. If you haven't checked it out yet, I have a video series currently running. It's my most anticipated games of 2022. I've already got the first 4 videos out in the series. The first one has my top 10 runners-up or contenders. The second and third have my top 50 expansions or later editions of games that have existed previously. And then the fourth video, which is already out, has the first 20 games from that 100 game list. I'm currently working on the rest of the series. I should have 3 of the 4 remaining videos published this week during the week. And then near the end of the week, I'll do another Kickstarter Weekly. And then next week, I'll get that last video out. And then following that, probably my November and December 2021 Game of the Month videos. And then I will do the Kickstarter Weekly for that week. And then once that is done, a few Kickstarter Weeklies down the line, I'll let you know what my plans are from there. But for the next 2 weeks, my plan is to complete that series, keep up with the Kickstarter Weekly videos, and get out a couple of those Game of the Month videos that are overdue. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this had some information in this video that was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on pledging either of these 2 Kickstarters that are funding this week, or what you have your eye on in the future. Have a great week, play lots of great games, check out my video series on the top 100 most anticipated games of 2022, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.